Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Conrad. This would be episode 6, and today we're going to be talking about Power Automate, also or formerly known as Flow, for executives. How you doing this morning, Conrad?
Doing good.
I am looking forward to this session. I have played a lot of different ways with Power Automate, and I'm excited to see the use cases you've got here.
Yeah, I really went through one example. I think one of the challenges that a lot of executives have, maybe even most people, but I'll definitely say on the executive side that um, whenever we hear like automation, the mind always goes to something that requires, a lot of effort. And, we always want to automate things, but we always find it challenging of what it could automate for us. And so I just have one simple example I'll go through. And hopefully after this, it really demystifies what Power Automate is, or what used to be called Flow, as you said, and just really shows, how even for yourself as an executive or as a manager someplace, where you can take certain tasks that normally seem pretty simple to go do, but often goes either not done at all, it falls off the wayside. We get somebody else in our staff to go do it, and really within just a few clicks, it really can make things very consistent for you and for others. And so if as an executive or manager you can get some productivity gains just on yourself, then you'll start to see how that can trickle down really through the rest of the organization to start leveraging these same things. I always find that really important for myself is when I can really see the value of it for me, that it just makes such a difference, really propagating that through the rest of the organization. So, a lot of times it's there's again the great idea, but then we lose time. Time is that one thing that we cannot recreate. Time is the thing that ends up getting wasted. And sometimes it's my time, it's other people's time to get it pulled together. We lose track of it. We don't know what's happening. So lots and lots of places where you can use Power Automate to do it. Now, the cool thing about Power Automate and what Microsoft has really done a good job is having a set of templates. So, first when we think about what's the intent around Power Automate, it really is to automate those, those kind of repetitive tasks that really need to get done, but again, we forget or we don't do it. The other nice thing is that in these templates, it's not just what's in Microsoft and Office 365. If you use things like Salesforce, or if you use a number of other applications, they actually have a lot of working examples on here. And yes, you can create even more complicated flows in here if you want, but start small. Get the feel for it. The example I'm gonna walk you through here took about, now I've been doing it for a while, but it took me about maybe 15 minutes, including taking screenshots and put it on here. So you really could put it together in 5 minutes, and that includes all the components I'm going to show you. But if you wanted something more complicated or add tasks to it, it's really cool to add on to it. So think about yourself first, about the tasks that you have. Here, I'm going to just work you through a quick example, just so that maybe it inspires the mind. So one of the things we do here at Agile IT is we try to have a lot of internal learning. So we call these brown bags. When we were all in the office instead of working remote, people would bring their lunch, and so we'd have it around lunchtime or just after or before lunch. People have different schedules. And they can have their lunch while somebody else is presenting and learning. And then we capture that information and make it as an available stream, so that now that whenever we want to watch it in the future, we can go do that and continue to share, continue to do the content. We try and do the brown bags where we don't have to create a lot of original content. A lot of times it's great information that somebody else already knows. And sometimes we gather that by asking people like, hey, what do you want to go do? And so instead I said, well, why don't I make a request form so that people could submit what they want? And this right here is a Microsoft form. To create this just took a few minutes, but it's valuable stuff. You can send it out, anybody can fill it in. And normally once you submit it this way, Forms will capture it, and then I can download it as a spreadsheet if I want, or I can go there and view the results. But Forms is a great place to capture it. It's not really great for interactive things where like, hey, can that drop down come from another place? That's more Power Apps, another session. So here are just some basic information I want to capture, but I don't really want to just have it stuck in Forms. What I really want to be able to do is have that information in a SharePoint list, because that's a great place to really store it, and that's a place where I can iterate on it some more. So let's use a template. There's already a template that does this exact same thing. Somebody fills out a form, an email gets sent, and then it gets added to a SharePoint list. So using the form right out of here, you'll see here where my name is already in there in the little green checkbox. So it means I've authorized it to run these tasks as me, which is okay, because this is just my automate for myself. If you did it for the business, it's another topic. But as an executive for yourself or individuals, this is a great way to get started. So then this pops up. Oh, it looks so daunting, but it really isn't. As soon as so this is the whole flow by itself, right out of the template. Nothing's changed. What I do is I hit the drop down. Oh, look, there's that brown bag request. That's the form that I already created. So it picks it right up. It was my form, sees it in there. It's in the drop down list. So I go ahead and click on that and then fill out the rest of the form. Filling everything else out is, I don't go through this whole thing. That's probably a better tech talk. But if you click on, like, let's say the to, so once I want to send the email, in this example, very simple, I'm just emailing it to the person that sent it. And I can also put my name in there and say, hey, every time somebody fills it out, send me an email that has this subject and this body. In this example, I just have it send it back to the respondent. And I could put in here, thanks for the suggestion being added to the list. I didn't put that in there, but you could. It really easy, just type it all in. And then in the create item, this right here, you see the little SharePoint logo on it. It's going to go to SharePoint, to that site list. We have an all company site list. This is actually our stuff. It's not a demo. So, and then it says list name. It's a SharePoint list. I created a SharePoint list, and it has these properties in the SharePoint list. So in the SharePoint list, I actually created a column called justification. It's just a simple text box. And the why is this important? Remember, that was the title in the form. So here there was kind of a mismatch, but it's really what, in the form, I didn't want to write just justification. I wanted to give it a nice sentence, but the value from that in the form will now go into this column called justification. Again, very simple to just go create. If you have an existing SharePoint list, you can just put it in there. If you didn't want it to go to SharePoint, you wanted it to go to a spreadsheet, you could actually delete this, say create spreadsheet. You can go on and on. Anyway, very simple. Also in that list is presenter, or is the slides, the video. Presenter claims actually would be a person, because what I want to do is, as soon as somebody sends a request, when we actually deliver it, I really want to go in there and put here's a pointer to the slides, here's a link to the video, and here's the person that delivered it. So I can turn this not just from a request, but also a list of keeping track of what we actually delivered. So these are just some of the basic columns in that SharePoint list. That's it. This whole flow to just fill in the blanks, takes maybe 2-3 minutes, if that. So had a form. Go, and then form's good. I like the way it goes. Created this from a template, pointed this out, have a SharePoint list that I already have that captured, right? Whole thing, knock it out, 10-15 minutes. So now that that's done and have this flow created, let's give it a go. So now let's test it out. So I fill out the form, Microsoft 365 F1. There's a change. I don't know if you know this, but Microsoft 365 F1, which has been there before, is changing. F1 as a name still stays in there, but now Microsoft has created Microsoft 365 F3. What used to be F1 is now F3, some other minor modifications. The price came along with it. Now the new F1 license is, instead of $10 or something like that, now around $4 or something. And it has less functionality. Different topic, but cool. But there's a change. And so somebody here in the organization, me, I'm the tester, I'm saying, hey, what's the change and what's it for? And the area of focus is a Microsoft product, and a little justification. I want to help, licensing to help our customers. Somebody submitting a request like that. So they hit the button, they hit request. So the results, once it did that, click the button, Automate went right through. It sent an email. That's what you see on the bottom. This is what it came in with. You saw it just said, hey, make the title whatever the title of the request, which is what it did. I wanted the subject line and the content to be this, which is what it did. And then on the brown bag request, you'll see that on the SharePoint site, it updated or added it directly. I went through this, did the whole thing, and it went right through. That was it. And now it's ready to go. I can send the form out to people in the business. I can have them fill out the form and go right away. So what normally would happen if I didn't do this, I'd have to send an email to people. Hey, what do you have requests for? Can you add it in? Or I would put it into the post and kind of the conversation in the team, because we love teams. And I would say, hey, put this in, but it would be a scattershot of information. Then I'd have to keep track, and I'd have to put it into a spreadsheet. And you see, I would have to do this. Instead, I did this myself, keep track. Now, this could be easily requests for additional uh, meetings or whatever. You think a little bit about what you do each day and how you collect it and where it goes. Or I'd have to give this task to somebody else to go ask it, and they get bombarded and put it away. Then I couldn't see it. This 15 minutes, now I have this new area, I can submit this to the company and they can go do it. So now I have this, it solves a problem that I have. I didn't have to own a piece of pain, nor do I have to give a piece of pain to somebody else to keep track of and do it. I automated the whole process. So again, when you think about just automation, it doesn't have to be, oh, I have to change my whole sales process. Oh, I have to change something really large. Sometimes it's doing what you do already, but just making it more efficient, make it to where you save time for other people, yet still collect the value that you want, and it's super consistent. So, these parts of your Microsoft 365 today that, you're able to do this kind of thing, it's a form, a SharePoint list, and a Power Automate. 15 minutes to do this. Think about what you can do now for the rest of your organization. Again, this gives you time as an executive, time back for yourself, as a leader. When you start to do these things yourself, everybody else to follow suit, and it really tells you the value, the time that it saves. And so when you go to other people, say, hey, well, let's look at automating this thing. You don't have to think about, oh, let's automate every single thing or our biggest problem. Sometimes it's the collection of small problems that you're able to resolve that gives you a massive amount of time back in consistency. So, when I think about Power Automate for executives, the time you can save is tremendous. And then the impact it can have throughout your whole organization, it just becomes much more amplified. So hopefully just looking at this quick example that you can really do yourself, gives you a different view of what Power Automate is, how easy it is to get started, how much valuable, time. Again, this part isn't going to take me lots of time, but it's something we would normally put off or collect it, right? So think about those areas. Start small, get some good value out of it, and then kind of go from there. So these are things that we try and do ourselves. And then for our customers, these are the areas that we want to try and educate and teach. So we talked about Power BI in the past. We're going to talk about it some more in the future around what you could do with the other data. But from an Automate perspective, hopefully you see like this is, again, small things, valuable, saves you time, creates consistency. And hopefully this just demystifies what this thing is and how you can use it. So it's kind of what I wanted to share today over a little cup of coffee.
Thank you, Conrad. One thing I was waiting for you to say was if this, then that. It's such a great way to think about it. So if this happens, or if you do this, then this will happen.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely do that in Power Automate. So in here, like if I go back for a little bit and just look at what comes out of the template, each one of these arrows, like if you see an arrow, once you would move over, a little plus sign, so you can click on it, and you can make some decisions like, oh, well, if the response, like let's say if it was a Microsoft product area, I could say, you know what, instead of this email going to the respondent, that was just the example that I used here. Instead of sending the email to the respondent, I can say, well, if the value was Microsoft product, remember the one of the lists on the in the form, I can say, oh, if it's a Microsoft product, send that email to Maggie. Hey, Maggie, somebody needs to take care of this. If it says it is a Agile IT solution, maybe I want to send that to Sean Spicer. If it's something else, send it to Conrad. And that way, the different people responsible for those areas can look at it and go, oh, no, that's an interesting brown bag. I think I'll get somebody on my team to go do that and take care of it. So now I'm directing towards the right leader for what they need to go respond to. And me as executive, I could say, hey guys, I know you got the email, and there's a notification that's in there. Now here it's email. It could have been a Teams conversation, which I like anyway. They'll get notified and you say, hey, that's out there. What are you doing to keep up? Like our people are asking us, well, let's create some content, or at least explain why we're not going to go do it. So that's the place where you can have those conditions within the same flow. But again, I would start off with this, but then you can add that condition, and then you can add another type of thing. So you can really start to expand on what you're doing just on something really, really small.
Awesome. All right, just a reminder to everybody, you can ask questions. They're in the question panel, and we've got a few in here already. So one of the first ones was, where do we go to start Automate and the form? We didn't have your address bar in there.
Oh yeah, I don't do that sometimes because it just seems to waste space and so hard to read. But if you go to forums, if you go to uh, uh, like portal.office365.com, you should be able to see the applications that are listed in there. Or you can go to it's funny right now, it's still the old name, but if you go to
Yep.
flow.microsoft.com, it takes you to Flow. SharePoint, it's whatever your tenant name .sharepoint.com, and then if you are um, doing forms, then it's forms.microsoft.com. You should be able to access it from the portal, which gives you a view of all the Office 365 applications you have access to. And you can start there. If you can't see Flow, then it's probably that the license, there's a free Flow that's on there, and one of your administrators just have to add that license for you. So that might be something that you're lacking. But if you have one of the Microsoft 365 licenses, it comes with it. You get a certain amount of flows that you have per person, and then if you do like thousands and thousands, then there's like a more organization-wide licensing. But those would be the main ones that you go to.
Great, thank you, Conrad. The next question is, can I tie this into my activities in Teams?
Yes. So there's when you create a flow like we have in this example, there's something that gets started. There's the trigger. Right, so sometimes it can be a manual trigger, which means you go into flow and you hit a button and boom, it goes off. This one, the trigger, the initiator, is when a new response is submitted into this form ID. So it can tie into and create a little hook into that. So there are some triggers for Teams, such as when somebody starts a new conversation. You say, oh, well, so somebody starts a new conversation, you may want to capture that. What's the name of the conversation? And I don't know, send a text message or capture that and put it in a something, I don't know. But yes, you can trigger off of something in Teams. You can actually push things into Teams as well. So somebody's filled out the form, and instead of me sending an email, you say, I want to create a post into that team saying, hey, somebody submitted this. And then this be, oh, can I use this to create like a ticketing system? Like, yeah, but ticketing systems have a lot of other complexities, but you could do something like that. Have a form when it gets created, create a spreadsheet, put something into a SharePoint list, and send something in the Teams like, hey, somebody has created a new incident. Here's a link. Click to it and go to it, and then goes to the SharePoint list.
Yeah, and a really nice one is when you mentioned earlier having conditional set up, is that one of the steps you can choose is a yes or no selection box. And that
Mhm.
can go through email, but it can also go into a Teams channel. And we've set it up where if you have a certain action occur in Cloud App Security, for example, somebody's using an unsanctioned app, you don't want to block every app on the planet, but it can block it and then notify IT staff and say, hey, is this okay? And if you click yes, it'll unblock it. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, there's some really neat stuff you can do with it.
and the one thing is now that you see this, and again, there's some places that still says flow, some that say automate. If you're in Teams and you're looking in files, you'll notice up there, or sometimes you have the little three dots of the ellipses inside of Teams and files, and you'll say create new flow or an approval process, and you can actually say, hey, when a new document is created, I want to be able to approve it before something else happens. So you can set up approval processes. So the one thing is just try it out. Go in there, click it around, try and create an approval process. It's pretty straightforward. When you start to do a lot of linking between different systems and tasks, sometimes there it gets a little challenging because you'll want to get two fields concatenated or build something, and you can still do this in here, but it gets a little bit more challenging. So that's normally a place people reach out to us for.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. Can you think of a way to add metrics or capture effective use?
Effective use of this,
Yeah.
I guess. So um, I, I don't know how to answer that except for if you had a purpose for creating this for brown bag request. Just take this, running with this example, and people aren't using it or they're submitting in other ways. You got to ask yourself a question, right? Is it because of awareness, or is it because there's not enough detail and then you need to make some modifications? But are people using this and making it effective? I think I anything you build, is it really saving time and solving a problem? So if you can actually see how many of these flows run and run successfully without failing, but that doesn't tell you it's really saving time in the business. So I don't really know how to answer that overall.
Well, the next one is not a question. It is a statement, and I agree. This is cool.
Yeah,
And
it is very cool. And like I said, to build this out, I built the form, the SharePoint list, the flow in about 15 minutes.
yeah, and I really encourage everybody that's watching this right now, go in and play with it for a minute. Um, Even if you don't really have a real idea of what you want to do, see what the connectors are, see the templates. And once you do start playing with it, I don't want to call it addictive, but it's really fun, and it does wind up saving you a lot of time.
Hmm?
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming through right now. Um, so I think we can call it and go get another cup of coffee. Thank you very much, Conrad. As a reminder, you can see all of our previous episodes there at agilit.co/CWC. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like and follow and ask any questions down in the comments field. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Thank you, Conrad.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, guys.